My boss fired me with a one-line email after 15 years. 1 month later, his chair had my name on it. After 15 years of loyalty, my boss fired me with a single-line email that took him less time to write than it takes to order coffee. 1 month later, I was sitting in his chair, and he was the one asking me for a job. If you like stories where patience becomes the sharpest weapon, hit subscribe because this one is deeply satisfying. My name is Karen. I'm 45, and I spent 15 years building the operations division of a mid-sized logistics company called Hallbrook Freight, starting as a coordinator at 28 and working my way up to director of operations by the time I turned 40. My mentor at that company, a woman named Susan who'd retired 6 years earlier, once told me over lunch, "You're doing 3 people's jobs and getting paid for one, Karen. One day, someone's going to notice, and it won't necessarily be your boss." I laughed it off at the time. I loved my work. I believed loyalty meant something. The company was run by a man named Gregory Hallbrook, the founder's son, who'd inherited leadership 8 years earlier after his father retired. Gregory was charismatic in board meetings, quick with a compliment when clients were watching, the kind of executive who photographed well for the company newsletter. My old college friend Denise, who worked in a completely different industry, met him once at a business mixer and told me afterward, "That man takes credit for other people's work like it's a hobby." I brushed it off. Gregory had always been kind to me personally, or so I believed. The first several years under Gregory's leadership were genuinely good. He gave me real autonomy, praised my quarterly reports in front of the board, told me more than once that I was the backbone of this company. I built relationships with our biggest clients personally, some worth over $2 million annually in shipping contracts. I trained an entire generation of coordinators who now ran their own divisions. I believed, truly, that Hallbrook Freight and I were building something together. Then, slowly, the credit started disappearing. Gregory began presenting my quarterly strategy reports to the board as his own initiatives, mentioning me only in passing, if at all. When a major client renewal I'd personally negotiated came through, he told the board it was a team win driven by leadership vision, standing at the front of the room while I sat quietly in the back row where I'd been for the past 2 meetings. I told myself it didn't matter, that the work mattered more than the credit. I kept telling myself that for years longer than I should have. The isolation crept in gradually. Gregory started scheduling important strategy meetings without including me, then explaining afterward that he'd forgotten to loop me in. He hired a younger operations manager, Trevor, fresh out of an MBA program, and began routing decisions through Trevor first, decisions that used to come straight to me. My relationships with other executives, once warm, grew distant, because everyone could see which way the wind was blowing, and nobody wanted to be caught standing too close to someone losing favor. The first major incident happened during a board presentation where I'd spent 3 weeks preparing a cost reduction strategy that would save the company nearly $400,000 annually. Gregory presented it as his own work, word for word from my deck, without crediting me once, while I sat in the room watching him take a round of applause for analysis I'd personally built from the ground up. Afterward, I confronted him quietly in his office, and he waved me off, said, "That's how leadership works, Karen. You should be flattered I trusted your numbers enough to use them." That night, he sent flowers to my desk with a note that said, "Sorry if you felt overlooked. You know how much I value you." The calm lasted about a month before the pattern repeated with a different project. Each subsequent incident followed the same rhythm. My name quietly removed from client-facing materials, my performance reviews growing shorter, vaguer, less enthusiastic despite consistently strong results. The apologies, when they came at all, shrank each time. A hallway, "Thanks for understanding," instead of a real conversation. An email instead of a meeting. and eventually, nothing at all. Denise watched this happen from the outside for years, telling me repeatedly that I deserved better, that companies like Hallbrook only valued people until they became inconvenient. I kept staying, kept telling myself 15 years of loyalty had to count for something eventually. The ticking clock arrived when Hallbrook Freight entered acquisition talks with a much larger national logistics firm, a deal that would either fold our company into a larger structure or position us for major expansion, depending on how negotiations went. The process required a full operational and financial audit, and as Director of Operations, I was asked to compile 15 years of departmental performance data for the due diligence team, data that, laid out clearly for the first time, painted an undeniable picture of exactly whose work had actually driven the company's growth over the past decade. While compiling that audit, I found something I wasn't looking for. Buried in an old shared drive folder, I came across financial projections Gregory had submitted to the board 18 months earlier. Projections that significantly overstated departmental efficiency gains, numbers that didn't match the real operational data I'd been tracking all along. It looked, unmistakably, like Gregory had been quietly inflating performance metrics to secure his annual bonus and maintain the board's confidence, while the actual gains, the real ones, had come entirely from changes my department implemented without him. I called Denise that night, staring at the spreadsheet on my laptop, hands cold. She didn't tell me what to do right away. She just said, "Document everything, quietly, before you say a single word to anyone." Denise, who'd navigated a corporate whistleblower situation at her own company years earlier, walked me through exactly how to preserve records properly, how to protect myself, how to time disclosure so it couldn't be dismissed as personal retaliation. 3 weeks later, the final incident happened. During a routine budget meeting, Gregory publicly blamed a shipping delay, one caused entirely by his own last-minute vendor change that I'd explicitly warned against in writing, on operational oversight failures in Karen's department. He said it flatly, in front of 6 other executives, using 15 years of my work as a scapegoat for his own decision. That same afternoon, I received a one-line email from HR, forwarded from Gregory. Effective immediately, your position has been eliminated due to restructuring. Please return company property by Friday. 15 years, ended in 11 words, with a courtesy copy to nobody who'd actually worked alongside me. I didn't cry at my desk. I sat very still for a long moment. Then I called Denise. And then I called the due diligence contact at the acquiring firm, a woman named Patricia who had personally handled several of my department's audit questions over the previous weeks and had, by that point, seen firsthand exactly how the operational numbers actually worked. I explained everything, calmly, professionally, backed by documentation Denise had helped me preserve properly. The inflated projections, the pattern of credit misattribution, the real performance data showing my department's actual contributions over 15 years, and the shipping delay incident where I had written proof I'd warned Gregory in advance. Patricia listened, asked careful questions, and told me the acquiring firm took financial misrepresentation extremely seriously, especially during active due diligence. Within 2 weeks, the acquisition's terms shifted dramatically. The acquiring firm, uncomfortable with what the inflated projections revealed about Gregory's leadership integrity, restructured the deal to require new executive leadership as a condition of moving forward, citing concerns about misrepresented performance data during due diligence. Gregory, facing the very real possibility of losing the entire acquisition deal, along with his own credibility, was quietly pushed out by the board within the month, his severance negotiated down significantly once the misrepresented projections became part of the formal record. The acquiring firm's leadership, having spent weeks reviewing exactly whose work had actually driven 15 years of departmental success, reached out to me directly. Patricia, it turned out, had personally recommended me for the newly created VP of Operations position, overseeing the combined division, a role with a salary nearly double what Gregory had ever paid me. 1 month after receiving that 11-word termination email, I walked back into the Hallbrook Freight Building, now operating under new combined leadership, and sat down in the corner office that had belonged to Gregory for 8 years. My name was already on the door. Gregory called me 2 months later, his voice careful, humble in a way I genuinely never heard from him before, asking if there might be any consulting opportunities available at the new combined company. I let the silence sit for a moment before answering, calmly, professionally, exactly the way he'd once dismissed me. "I'll pass your information along to HR," I told him. "They handle all external applications." I still run that division today, 3 years later, with a team that trusts me completely and a board that actually reads my name in the reports I write. Denise and I still have lunch every month, usually somewhere with good coffee.